Hello, everyone, and welcome to another live match preview show on Football Talk Podcast. My name is Ozzie, and I'm your host for this evening. A fixture that involves two teams in a very celebrational mode, and that is Liverpool and Crystal Palace. Of course, Crystal Palace have recently won the FA Cup, and Liverpool, of course, have won the Premier League, which happened almost 4 or 5 weeks ago. So, it's going to be pretty much party vibes, I guess, this Sunday. Both teams are having their parades on Bank Holiday Monday. So yeah, they've got a lot to celebrate, a lot to cheer about. But that doesn't mean that this match doesn't go ahead. It's business as usual, as this game will conclude the season of 2024/2025. So what we'll do today, we'll discuss some relevant news regarding Liverpool in terms of possibly what Florian Wirtz joining the club. We'll also touch on Jurgen Klopp making some comments about Trent Alexander-Arnold, which has definitely got a lot of people talking on social media, as well as Arne Slot's comments in regards to Trent's attitude in the course of this season. So, quickly touch on Florian Wirtz. So, in terms of what we're hearing right now, apparently a deal has been agreed in the region of £110 million for the player. Apparently, the fee has been agreed as well as personal terms. So the thing that is remaining is the booking of the medical. So that could take place in the next few weeks. Or I say few weeks, let me reiterate, next few days. And we could get a announcement in the next 2 or 3 days. So, happy days in terms of how um we're feeling as a fan base, because at one point I don't think this rumor or this link for Wirtz to join Liverpool was realistic. This was a pipeline dream for most of us. So for Liverpool to make this a reality is a huge statement. I do believe that this move will be a game changer for Liverpool going forward. So let's see what happens officially. I did do a show earlier regarding the news about Florian Wirtz. So if you haven't already, please make sure to catch up and watch it on our channel. Now, in terms of this match or things that are happening around it, um, Jurgen Klopp made an appearance yesterday as part of the LFC Foundation ceremonial occasion that happened yesterday. He did a Q&A, and he was asked about Trent Alexander-Arnold. So his sort of feeling about what happened with regards to Trent getting booed by the Liverpool fans is that he's saying, don't be disappointed to us fans, but don't forget what he's done for this club, which I guess is a fair point. But then he held up his shirt, which I don't think that's the thing that he should have done. He should have spoken about this situation rather than showcasing a shirt with his name on it. And I know he signed it, and I think it's going to go for an auction. Um, and then he said he heard the booing. He switched the TV off. He couldn't have been more disappointed about that reaction. And this isn't us. Now, he's entitled to, to say it out loud. And, to an extent, I understand what he's saying, but I don't completely agree. He's not been at the job for the last 12 months, so he hasn't seen what the player has been like on the training ground and even in matches as well. He's going on based off his account in terms of how Trent was under his regime. And of course, Trent played his best football in that period of time. Jurgen Klopp is pretty much telling us, to react a certain way, and I don't think that's acceptable. Fans have every right to express how they feel, whether it's good or bad. You know, we are the sort of the paying supporter, so we are entitled to voice our opinion, especially in the games. And where else are you going to voice those opinions? Of course, I'm a content creator, so I have a platform where I do it here, and it's to a small scale. Whereas the player would never know what we're talking about because they're not watching these channels. Well, I don't think they are anyway. But the only time that fans can voice their opinion is during match day. And during that game, I think the initial reaction when he came onto the pitch, for me, is justified because it gives you the idea of how the fans are feeling right now. It was quite split, but I'd say it's probably 80% were booing him, and I think it was 20% that were clapping him. But the claps were not as vocal as, for example, the booze in that sense. So personally, in my opinion, I think when he stepped onto the pitch to be brought on, that reaction, I feel like the fans are entitled to react the way they want to react. But what I didn't like was when he was actually on the pitch and he was getting booed for every touch that he took on the ball. For me, I don't think that's acceptable because he's still a Liverpool player. I know he's on the verge of leaving, and tomorrow is his last game, but he's still wearing a Liverpool shirt. He's still, playing for the team. So despite what you think of him, I feel like it was right for us to boo him on every touch that he took. I feel like it did impact the way we played, and I feel like, it definitely, caught him off guard and he produced a bit of a stinker as well. So for me, I think that was a bit too far, if I was to be honest there. But I don't think the initial reaction was um a wrong one. I think the fans are entitled to express how they feel, and it was no surprise. The way he's conducted himself, the way he's played this season as well. Some will even question his attitude, and that's something that Arnold did do earlier on in the press conference. Because I feel like this move was always on the cards for him. I don't feel like it was a decision that he made in March or April. This has been on the cards for him for about a couple of years, at least 1 year. I can't say for sure 2 years, but at least 1 year. And the way Real Madrid operate, they always speak to their targets a year or two in advance before their contract expires, and they, tell them straight, if you want us to sign you, you have to run out the remaining years of your contract, and that's when we'll land you for a free transfer, and we can, promise you a sign-on fee and all that stuff at this kind of salary. And then it gives you that sort of incentive to join them because they're going to give you, a large sum of money that they probably wouldn't get if they were to sign a contract extension, for example. So some say that the Trent move isn't money oriented. It definitely is, but I think for him it's been more of a lifestyle kind of decision where I feel like the glitz and glamour of moving over to Madrid is what's appealing to him all of a sudden. It's beyond football now. I think he wants to be remembered or recalled as a icon rather than just a good footballer. I think he wants to be a brand, kind of like the David Beckham effect in that manner. So you know, it, it's his decision. I do feel like in the last fixture against Brighton, he was in front of the crowd, and the crowd, despite us, not having a great result, were cheering and dancing and having a full-on celebration after the game. I think he realized something hit him and made him realize that maybe this was the wrong decision. That was the look I get on his face. I could be completely wrong because I've tried to analyze him in certain ways, and yeah, it's always backfired because it looks like he's already made his mind up. He's already got I'll say 1 foot in Madrid right now. That's the kind of impression I get from him. So tomorrow will be his last game. Whether he makes an appearance or not remains to be seen. But Armstrong has some very interesting comments regarding Trent as well. And one thing I really like about Armstrong, he's a very straight talker. He doesn't beat around the bush. He's not trying to be rude or anything to that matter. He's just very direct, says it how it is, with no malice. That would be the best way to describe him. So he said that he wasn't completely happy with every single minute he was on the training ground. In his opinion, in certain moments, he felt like Trent could have done more, just to say it mildly. And that's what they spoke about, early on when Arnold joined the club. And then combined with that, he told him that, you're a much better defender than everybody tells you are. Unfortunately, you don't show it all the time in terms of his body language and attitude, and that's why people assume that you're not as good as you really are as a defender. I don't think he's a great defender, but I think Arsenal was kind of right in that regards. Um, he also said that he needs to be focused and needs to concentrate. Um, there are not many players that can go around him because he's quite fast, he's agile, he has a great mentality. Um, but the key detail from us was that he needed to show that in every game because in this day and age, we are judged by, he said in his words, not only on the 34 games you do well, we judge them on the 4 games that you don't do well. So the negatives always seem to override the positive, especially in this modern day game. So these are things that they spoke about in preseason. Now, it wasn't a completely, crazy comments here from Arnold Slot, but he said out loud he wasn't, completely pleased or happy with his attitude in training. And that's why, during the early parts of the season, you'd get Trent, giving him like dirty looks and dirty stares as he's getting substituted because there's a time I think everyone will remember he was always getting substituted around the hour mark on a regular basis. So that's something that he didn't take very kindly. But the coach was there to send a message, and that was that you've got to be 100% on it. You've got to show a positive attitude. You've got to show more dedication in your craft because this season I feel like Trent has improved in that area in terms of one-on-one duels and it's been better defensively. But there's been a large parts of the season where I feel like the focus isn't quite there. The attitude to sprint back and help out Konate or whoever the centre back is when they've lost possession was quite evident. I think the game that everyone will earmark is the United game where he was abysmal. So look, it's one of those things where I feel like it's refreshing to hear a manager speak out loud in this manner. He didn't belittle him or anything to that nature. He just said, "Look, I've had words with him in the early past because I don't think he was fully focused or fully committed." So maybe Arsenal always had that in the back of his mind that this guy may not be completely on it and may end up deciding to move on. So I don't think it's affected his sort of plans for next season. Of course, if Trent was to stay, then it's a positive. But I think life goes on. We've already found his replacement in Jeremy Frimpong. That move will be officially announced very very soon, and we've also extended Conor Bradley's contract for another 5 6 years. So that's positive. So our right back situation is pretty much sorted. So he moves on and goes over to Spain to play for Madrid. So let's see what he does there. But after today, I don't think we'll speak about Trent any further because there's no need. So this is the only time we'll speak about. And tomorrow, I guess, after the parade, after the celebrations, no need. He's not a Liverpool player. He's not affiliated with the club any further. So that will, it'll be nice to stop talking about him as well because yeah, we've been speaking about him a lot this season. That's what he wants. He wants that attention. He wants it to be where all the discussions are about him, and hopefully that will be put to bed in the next few days. So that's the viewpoints from Arsenal and Klopp in terms of Trent Alexander-Arnold. What we'll quickly do now is we'll present the team news and see who's available for this fixture tomorrow. In regards to Liverpool, McAllister is unfortunately not available. He's got a slight groin problem, so I don't think he'll be taking part tomorrow. Tyler Morton is still out with a shoulder injury. Joe Gomez has been fit in recent weeks and has been on the bench, but whether he starts or not, I pretty much very much doubt it. Could see him making a cameo later on, but we'll see what happens tomorrow. In terms of Crystal Palace, Wharton, of course, that was a player that I was looking forward to watching in this fixture. He picked up a concussion against Man City in the FA Cup final, so he's unavailable for this one. And Mark Gay is also out. Another player linked to Liverpool um, suffered a freak eye injury in the final, so therefore he is not going to take part in this fixture, which is a shame. We've got two players linked with the club. It would have been good to see how they perform against us, but it wasn't to be. So what we'll do now is we'll predict the lineups for both teams, and I'll also give you my score predictions as well. And then I can see there's a few comments in the chat, so I'll bring up those comments after the predicted lineup. So let's start with the away team. Now in goal, it'll definitely be Dean Henderson. He had a fantastic performance in the FA Cup. Not that Henderson, this Henderson. So he'll be in goal. It would have been Gay in this back line, but due to his injury, I don't think. Trying to see who would we add in this team. Um, I can see Glasgow putting on Ward, and I think this will be Ward's last fixture. I believe. I think his contract is expiring. He's been, a long time servant for the club as well. He's been there for at least 10 years, 10 plus 12 years, I think it is. So it'd be a good send off, I guess, for him. I can see Lacroix playing on that left hand side, and I think, or maybe just put them in Riches as well. Maybe he goes centrally. So I think that would be the back three for Crystal Palace. And then Manus, who's just signed a new contract with the club, he'll be the right wing back. And I think he's probably been the best player in the league in terms of that right back / wing back role. And then on the other side, you've got Mitchell, and then your double pivot. Going to go for Kamada. He had a good cameo against Man City in the FA Cup final. And then I'm going to go for Rio Hughes. So that's the midfield four. And then on the right side, it will be Ismail Assar, Eze, who's definitely going to have a lot of interest in the summer. I think he'll stay at Palace, to be fair, but I'll be interested to see what happens with his future. And Mateta up top. So that is my predicted lineup for Crystal Palace. Um, I think the defense is not as solid as it normally is due to players not being available. The centre midfield is not I say as solid as it normally is. Wharton, the deep playmaker, but very good defensively. Kamada is more box to box. Hugh is generally a box to box player as well. So, it'll be interesting to see how, they set up defensively, because if they both come forward, then that has a gap in that central position. So I feel like centrally we can definitely exploit them further, with high intensity pressing from the likes of Szoboszlai or whoever plays in that advanced midfield role. And I feel like with our wide forwards, maybe they can go at Ward, who's playing on the left. Richards, good player, but not accustomed to just playing on the channels and such. So I definitely feel like there's a few weak points here that Liverpool can exploit in this fixture. But it depends what Liverpool turn out, because on paper I might be presenting a very strong team, but mentally, are they there? Because I feel like, the players are on should I say holiday party mode right now, and they will be on holiday mode, I guess, after the parade. So what we'll do now is we will present the lineup for Liverpool, and then we'll put the players in there. So in terms of the goalkeeper, no surprise, it will be Ali in goal. And then he's definitely not going to be Trent Alexander-Arnold. I don't think he's even going to make a cameo, to be brutally honest with you. So Conor Bradley on the right, Robertson on the left, Konate. Would this be Konate's last appearance in the Liverpool shirt this season? I really hope not, but can't completely rule out, because he hasn't signed a new contract. And if he doesn't sign a new contract, I can see the club um, cashing in on him this summer, as he's got 1 year remaining. Gravenberch, uh, who of course was awarded if the PFA Young Player of the Year, and thoroughly deserved. I think he's been outstanding today, so really good to see him receiving that award. Then we have Curtis Jones and Mohamed Salah also getting an award for Player of the Season. No arguments there. If you do think that's the wrong decision, you can argue amongst yourselves. On the left hand side, it will be Gakpo. So, if I can spell his name correctly, there you go. And up top, I'm going to go for Diaz. I think Diaz will play up top. And it could be his last game as well, because strong rumors are circulating to suggest that Barca could be in for him, as well as team in the Saudi Pro League. So his future is still very unclear. So this could be the last appearance for the Colombian as well. So that is my predicted lineups. Uh, Feel free to let me know what you guys think. Now, in terms of score prediction, I'm not expecting us to go all guns blazing. I don't expect Crystal Palace to do the same either. So I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw, and I think the goal scorers will be Mohamed Salah for Liverpool and Mateta um, for Crystal Palace. So that is my predicted lineups, and that is also the end of our match preview. Just before we close the show, I'm going to go through some of the comments. Abdul says hi. I think he means Ozzie, not Fozzie. Hi, Ozzie and chat. How you're doing? Like, comment, share, and subscribe. LFC versus Crystal Palace parade lineup transfer. And he says, "Oh, brother, along this tab, we need to sell or potentially get rid of Kelleher, Kwanzaa, Gomez, Kanate, Simicas, Endo, Elliott, Jones, Chiesa, Morton, Nunes, Jota, Reece Williams, Nat Phillips, Calvin, Ramsey, Doak, and Bastich. Out of the names that you mentioned, I think Kelleher will leave. Kwanzaa, I'm not entirely sure. It will depend on how much finance we have available, because if we spend big on Wirtz, which looks like is going to be the case, and we somehow miraculously also sign as top striker, we might not have enough money in the bank to go for a centre back. So let's see. I'm going to leave Quans 50-50. Gomez, I'd like him to stay. Kanate, I'm praying he gets a new, or should I say, signs a new contract extension. Simicas will be the one to go. Endo, I'd like to say I'd like to have that stability in the middle of the park. Elliot, I think, will be the one that departs. Jones remains. Chiesa, I think, will be sold back to Serie A. Morton will be sold, definitely. Nunes will be sold as well. Jota, he could be sold as well if we get a good offer. Reece Williams, 100% will be sold and moved on, as well as Nat Phillips, Calvin Ramsey. Ben Doak, I think he'll get a decent, we'll get a decent transfer fee out of him. And Bash, I think he returns to the squad next season. So that's my prediction there for the players that you've mentioned. Abdul said if we get Kirkis and Frimpong in as our wing backs, in left back and right back, we need a centre back, a centre mid, number 10, number 9. I agree with that. Um, a centre back needs to be added, in my opinion. A defensive mid is a must. It is a must. If we have two attack-minded fullbacks, we need to have a player in that team that has the sole focus of being defensive and covering ground and making sure, you know, we're not exploited by the opposition. So for me, we need a specialist playing that role. I don't think there'll be a starter because I think Gravenberch can do that. But in the course of a long season, we need rotation. So another player added to the squad that can rotate with Gravenberch will be the key in terms of how well we do next season. So definitely agree. CDM needs to be added. And number 10. Number 10, I have one player in mind, and that's Cherky. So for me, it's more of a player that can cover right wing. For me, he's a cam that can play right wing, not just an out and out number 10, because Wirtz is going to be that guy. But I think it would be very, very you know positive if Liverpool were to get Cherky as well. 90 million. That's his reported release clause. Has peanuts in this day and age. So I really hope we can get that done. And the number 9 is a must. Despite Liverpool being the top scorers in the league with 85 goals, it's still an area that I feel like we can improve, because we've beaten teams very convincingly, but we haven't demolished teams either. So I feel like that's something we can really improve on next season. Strikers haven't been banging the goals. Most of the goals have come from Mohamed Salah, from Gakpo. Diaz has contributed as well. So we need to try and probably spread out the goals across the team a little bit more. And I think with the two fullbacks in Kirkes and Frimpong, that can certainly happen next season. Ibrahim says, Ozzy, how are you? We are looking scary next season. Big up yourself, Ibrahim. I'm doing good. I hope you're doing well as well. Yes, it's looking positive, and yeah, we are looking scary for next season. The rival fans are trembling right now. They are worried. They're concerned. They're probably having sleepless nights as well. Because if we get Wirtz on the line, that is a huge statement. Now, that is what you call a marquee signing. That is the signing that will shock the airwaves. And I definitely feel like, we've got a player that is a generational talent, and I feel like he could be a future Ballon d'Or winner. That's the kind of level of player that we're signing. So it's a huge statement from Liverpool. It really is. Abdul says we need an out-and-out striker that can score goals. We need a gunman who's clinical, bangs goals, and is a finisher. Totally agree. We need a CDM that protects the back four, reinforces strong, tall. Uh, doesn't need to be tall in my opinion, but I get your point. Good on the ball, technical, and gels the midfield together. The other midfield can express themselves with assist, pass, and goals. Um, we need identity. We need to identify a strong, tall, powerful, and intelligent centre back to serve as the next captain of Liverpool Football Club, like Van Dijk. This will be tough, and Konate might leave. Yeah, I want to have the sort of the thinking of that. Oh, he needs to be the next Liverpool captain or anything to that extent. We do need another good defender. Uh, just depends who's available. To be fair, well, it'll be interesting. I have a feeling we might get Hato. That's the player that I would get as a stopgap signing, and then next year we can try and get someone a bit more established. When I say stopgap, it's because he's generally a left back, but can play centre back as well. So in this squad, he'll be covering two positions, and then next year we can sign a more accomplished centre back to play alongside Van Dijk or Konate. But we'll see what happens there because with Konate's uncertainty in regards to his contract situation, it might be where we have to address it earlier than planned. So let's see what happens with Konate. As other options, a cheap option in number 10 gives White, Eze, and Cherky. For me, Cherky is the one that we should be trying to sign. Eze, fantastic player. I've been rating him for a number of years now. I think he'll cost a bit, and I don't feel like it's a position that we need to invest heavy. The reason I'm favoring Cherky a little bit more, and to be fair, Gibbs White is a good player. He's very talented. The reason I'm favoring Cherky is because he's left, well, not left, but he's both footed, but he predominantly plays on the right wing, and I feel like he could be a great understudy for Salah. That's the profile player that I want Liverpool to sign this summer, and he can also play number 10 if required. So we don't need a similar type of player like a Wirtz, who for me would Eze would kind of fit that mold stylistically. I'm not saying they're on the same level. Stylistically, they're both players that can play attacking midfield, but can also play on the left wing. And Gibbs White is the same profile as well. So for me, we're signing the best profile for that type of player, and that is Florian Wirtz. And Cherky for me is a unique player because he's both footed, can play on the left, can play on the right, can play the number 10. I feel like he would be an amazing addition to our squad. So for me, Cherky is the one that will definitely excite the fans because he's a very likable player, very interesting to the how he plays, great skills, bit of a maverick, which we're kind of missing in this day and age. So he'd be a fantastic player to our squad. Whether he's a slot type of player is a debate because some fans say that he doesn't track back, and I've watched him play a few times this season, which quite recently was against Manchester United, and he was running around like he was definitely tracking back. So maybe that's just the misconception of him not being a player that defends. So I don't completely agree with that notion, but I haven't seen him throughout the whole of the season. But from what I've seen, he looks like he's a good worker for the team, and produces the goods. He's had, I think, 18 plus assists this season, so he's definitely a player that has that intricate touch. And with Trent leaving, we do need creativity from different areas of the pitch. So Cherky can certainly fit that bill. Afterwards asked, what are FSG, Richard Hughes, Julian Ward, Michael Edwards, backroom staff, and also discussing regarding player trends and departures in private meetings at LFC? I'd have to be a fly buzzing around the room to know that. But my guess would be players that have been strongly linked with the club. Those are the type of profiles we need. The players that you've listed into the positions, I think that is the areas that we need to address in this window. You know, and they'll be having a debate because it's not just one person that decides who comes in; it's a collective decision. So it's the committee, as well as Ward, Hughes, and Edwards, and also so yeah, they'll be having some discussion. I think they've been having discussions for a long time. It's not just happened this week, especially when you've heard rumors that the the move surrounding works. They've done the groundwork since January. They've had discussions with him since then. So Liverpool do things under the radar, and I don't mind it, to be fair, because if things are out in the open, imagine if Works was linked with us from January onwards, then it could have jeopardized the move in the end for us. So So I'm happy that it's been on the radar, and it looks like we're on the verge of signing a top player in Florian Wirtz. Um, I would say this will be a celebratory more rather than a competitive game in Palace tomorrow at 4 p.m. Yeah, I definitely agree with that one. And it brings us, Ozzy, what do you think about Angelo Stiller as a DM for us? I think he's a good player, to be fair. He wouldn't be top of my list if I'm being honest with you, but in terms of what we need in the team, I feel like he's a slot type of player. He's very technical on the ball, good on the half turn. Um, you know, in his role, he'll need to sort of take over the ball, back to goal, and that's a skill itself. Some players aren't able to do that because, in terms of the move, they're not agile enough to execute that. He's good at that. He's got a good left foot, good passing range on him, hard worker, energetic as well. I believe he's available for around 30-40 million pounds. So he could be an interesting profile. But I don't know if he'll be the main target for us. But in terms of the financial package, I feel like he ticks a lot of boxes. So definitely want to look for it. If he was, the one that ends up signing for us, I'd be pleased. I'd be, very happy with that transfer. But I don't know. I think we'll be strongly linked to Wharton, who I feel like has probably a higher ceiling than still, in my opinion. So that would be a fantastic addition. But I wouldn't mind Angelo still. I think he's a good player as well. Abdul says Nunes is an athlete, then a footballer. He needs space and time on the ball. Nunes would be good in Spain or Italy. I wouldn't go as far as saying he's just an athlete. He can play ball, but he's not particularly great. And when I say not particularly great, he's not great to play at the highest level, in my opinion, or for a Premier League team like Liverpool, because his first touch can be really heavy. I don't think he has the intelligence to know where to position himself on the pitch. I feel like he does run very aimlessly at times, and that's why he ends up being offside so much as well. In a different league where it's a bit more slow pace, he can be a bit more calculated in terms of his movement and stuff. That's why he was doing so well at Benfica in the Portuguese league, because that suited his skill set. So I think Spain and Italy definitely good, destinations for him. I feel like his skill set would definitely suit those type of leagues, and even the Saudi league. Let's put Saudi league in there as well. So yeah, for me, just not a great finisher. I thought when he joined, maybe he's quite raw, so maybe he needs to just find that composure, and he'll be able to evolve. That wasn't the case. He hasn't evolved in any shape or form. I think he's actually stagnated. I don't think he's improved his finishing at all, which is a huge concern for a player that's been at the club for about 3 years. So right time for him to move on, and for Liverpool to try and find another number 9 in the team. I was also comment saying Jota can't get fit and is always injured. Selection is very important. Totally agree with you. I think it's going to be very interesting to see what they do with Jota, because he's a player that, on his heyday or when he's on form, he's amazing on the pitch. Such a great finisher, score of all types of goals, even headers. Like, he's really good header of the ball. But unfortunately, the saying, the best of ability is availability, and that's something he really lacks. And this season we've been lucky that Luis Diaz has found this new sort of lease of life, where he's adapting and played quite well as a false nine for us. Nunes was very hit and miss throughout the season, so we need to come up with an alternative, and then that ended up being Luis Diaz. So for me, if Luis Diaz was to leave, which looks like it could be on the cards, having Jota as a backup to our new striker on paper is slightly worrying, if I'm being brutally honest with you, because your backup players are supposed to be players that are pretty much always available whenever called upon. And if your backup's unavailable, what do you do? Because there's more pressure on the person that's playing in the starting lineup. But if he picks up or not, then you're screwed. You gotta have to find another player to make up that position. So I think if we can get a decent offer of 40 million, I think Liverpool will be happy to part ways with Jota. And we can definitely go on. if we were to get that kind of money, then I wouldn't mind signing a Delap that could be from the bench, and then you have another top striker like Isak or Alvarez or Gyökeres or Osimhen, those type of established goal scorers. That's what I want in our team now. I don't want a project player anymore. I want a goal scorer, an established goal scorer. So if we have an established one and a young and up and coming striker, that's a great balance for the team. So that's the type of profile that I expect us to be signing in this coming window. Ibrahim's commented saying, with the arriving of Wirtz, what do you think will happen with Szoboszlai, or are we going to play Wirtz as a false nine? So let me see if I have this graphic still loaded up. Uh, let's do so. Let's show it. So this is how I think we will set up. Um, Minus Jota. I've only added Jota there because I'm not sure what striker we're going to sign for, but this is how I envision the team to be next season. So I'm expecting it to be Kirkers on the left, Frimpong on the right, Virgil Konate, and then Gravenberch, McAllister, Salah on the right. So both guys still playing that central, and I'll explain why still playing it, and then Wirtz on the left hand side, and then our new striker, I'm not going to say Jota, our new striker leading the line. And this is not a static formation. It's not going to be the team that plays every week. In some games, I can see Wirtz playing as the number 10 and, maybe Gakpo on the left. There'll definitely be a lot of rotation amongst those players there. But in this team, I feel like it could really work because you've got a very attack-minded fullback in Kirkes. So I feel like from what I've seen of Wirtz I'm sure we all have. We've watched a lot of compilations in the recent days. Like even watching him for Bayer Leverkusen in the last few years, he's a player that likes to attack the left-hand side. So even if he was playing as a number 10, he likes to always drift over there. That's why he gives me that Coutinho vibe, because that's what Coutinho used to do in our team as well. So I feel like it would be better for him uh, to come a bit more inside, and then you've got Szoboszlai here, and then Salah being in that kind of position. So then you end up having it's like a 4-2-2 sort of formation where you've got two banks of attacking midfielders. You've got defensive midfielders, attacking midfielders, and then two attackers. And I feel like Salah's going to be the one that goes in. He going on the underlap in terms of going inside. I feel like in this team with Kirkes, so with Wirtz in our team, Kirkes is going to be overlapping a lot more. So for me, that adds the right balance in terms of how we want to set up. And that's why I'm excited about this prospect, because I feel like all of these players can gel well. And, Gakpo can be added in this mix as well instead of Szoboszlai. And then Wirtz can play on the right side. Wirtz is very versatile. He's very comfortable playing on the right side or the left side or through the middle. What he brings to the team is his dribbling ability. He's a phenomenal dribbler. I'm not making, which I'm going to enjoy watching him next season, but very rarely gives the ball away. So accurate with his passing, great small touches, does it very effortlessly. I feel like he's probably one of the best dribblers in world football. That's how much I rate Wirtz in that area. And he's got a great eye for pass in terms of threading that final ball, that needle of the eye sort of stuff. Like he's very, very talented, and he's got a decent shot on him as well, both footed. So I feel like he's gonna have a huge impact in how he set up. So tactically, that's how I feel like we'll set up. Of course, on paper, it will be a 4-2-3-1 formation. And depending on opposition, we might have to set up differently. But the beauty of our four players is they can all roam around and play in different areas. So both have to go on the right. Salah goes centrally. That can be done as well. Um, Vice versa. Obviously, Salah won't play on the left. But there's a lot of variation in terms of how we set up. And I feel like it's gonna add that unpredictability in how we play next season, because if we go the same way we've done this season, teams are going to figure us out. They'll know how to stop us with their game plan. And, we've got to be innovative. We've got to come up with different ideas for different games. And I feel like with Armstrong, he's shown that for me this season. He's a proper coach. He's not just a manager. He's a coach that is always trying to think 2, 3 steps ahead, and trying to be smart and in fact outsmart the opposition on every occasion. So it's going to be very, very interesting to know how we play, and Ibrahim said that pace will that we will have will be insane. It will be insane. It's going to be a joy to watch. So that's definitely one that I'm looking forward to. Um, and yes, that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. Thank you to Abdul and thank you to Ibrahim for your comments. I appreciate your engagement as always, guys. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Now, in terms of upcoming shows, I will be doing a live watch of this game. The game starts at 4 p.m., so I'll be live from 3:50 UK time, and then we'll watch the game together and we'll watch the trophy lift, which is what we've been waiting for all this time. And then we'll do a match reaction, possibly later in the evening at that time. Time to be confirmed. So I'll let you guys know either during the watch along or uh, I'll let you know after just before we end the show. And then also make sure you hit that notification bell so you know what time I'm doing up going live. And yeah, I'll be at the parade. So if you're there, feel free to, drop a message if you want to meet up. I'll try and take some video content as well and try and post it. Like, I might go live whilst I'm there as well. So definitely want to look out for. Just got a comment there from Fozzie. Big up Fozzie. Said, yes, bro. Big up Fozzie. I hope you're doing well. And yes, that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care. Stay safe. And I hope to speak with you all very, very soon. Goodbye.